NBA trades are always incredible. No matter how big or small, they always create conversation and help occupy dry periods throughout the year. They've gotten crazier and crazier over the years as teams have started to realize that they don't really put too much of a dent on your team if they don't work out, and I don't think this trend will change anytime soon. But better than trades are the rumors and hearing about those almost trades that happen. Over the last decade, there have been some crazy ones. Chris Paul to the Lakers almost happening before getting shut down by David Stern. Kyrie Irving almost teaming up with Giannis Antetokounmpo. I mean, I could just go on and on about these. So, in today's video, that's exactly what we're gonna do. We're gonna take a look at a couple of those crazy almost trades, go back in history, and talk about 3 of the biggest ones I believe over the last decade. The first almost trade I want to discuss is Paul George to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Paul George, we know him to be this great two-way guy, a 6'8" monster who can dribble like the best point guards in the league. At one point, him and the Indiana Pacers kind of ran the Eastern Conference up until they met LeBron James. Then Paul George got injured, and at that point, the Indiana Pacers were just a shell of their former selves. After getting swept in the 2017 playoffs, it looked like it was time for Indiana to move on from Paul George. For the Cleveland Cavaliers, they had just lost to the KD-led Golden State Warriors. This new-look team was a dynasty. They looked like they were going to run the league for many, many years to come. LeBron James went to the front office and basically said that he didn't believe the team could compete with that Warriors team. So, David Griffin and the Cleveland Cavaliers made some calls, and a PG trade got very, very, very close to happening. The trade actually was so close to happening that Paul George was almost on a phone call with Cavs owner Dan Gilbert. The trade was in place, a 3-team trade that would send Paul George to the Cleveland Cavaliers, Kevin Love to the Denver Nuggets, and Gary Harris as well as other assets to the Indiana Pacers. It would jumpstart the Pacers rebuild. It would give the Cavaliers a much better third option than Kevin Love was, and Kevin Love and Jokic could probably do something on the offensive end in Denver, because Lord knows that defense ain't up there. But the Pacers got cold feet. They traded Paul George to the Oklahoma City Thunder, and the rest is history. Paul George, LeBron, and Kyrie Irving. Just talk about what that trio could have done. Would Kyrie Irving have gotten traded? Does LeBron James leave? What would the team have looked like today? Who knows the answers to those questions, but if one thing's for certain, this is a fun what if to think about. Next player I want to talk about is Stephen Curry. We all know Stephen Curry, the greatest shooter of all time, one of the greatest players we've ever seen in the NBA, and the way he was able to change the NBA over the years, he'll definitely be an icon to remember. But what if I told you at one point one of the greatest point guards of all time was nearly headed to the Midwest? At one point in his career, Stephen Curry was very injury prone, and with the Warriors having a small backcourt of him and Monte Ellis, there was a decision to make. When the talks of a decision needed to be made, the first player they looked to keep was Monte Ellis. Stephen Curry was a player they originally chose to trade away, and the team that they were looking to trade him to was the Milwaukee Bucks. The deal was there, Andrew Bogut for Stephen Curry, and in Milwaukee, Stephen Curry I'd imagine would shine. And who knows, the team was still kind of not so good enough that they probably would have still ended up with Giannis Antetokounmpo. And could you imagine what that duo could have done? Stephen Curry, Giannis Antetokounmpo, 2 players that can grow together and blossom to the all-time greats that they are. But the Bucks kind of screwed up. But at the same time, it did work out for both teams as Stephen Curry, like we said, blossomed to this crazy NBA player, and the Bucks got Giannis. And who really knows? Maybe the Bucks don't get Giannis in that draft, and it's just Stephen Curry. And what would happen to the Warriors? Klay Thompson and Draymond Green, thinking that they don't blossom to that dynasty that we see them as today. For my last what if of the video, I'm gonna double down on the Warriors talk, just hit on one of their key players of that big 3. Draymond Green, Stephen Curry, and Klay Thompson. And it's actually Klay Thompson who's the focal point of this what if. We go back to the 2013-14 season. The Warriors are a 50-win team, but they lost in the first round to the Los Angeles Clippers in 7 games. At this point, they're looking to make an aggressive move to get over the hump. That's where the trade talks start. The player that they were looking at adding was Kevin Love, who at the time was a top 8 to 10 player in NBA. This time in Minnesota was pretty bleak because the team around him just wasn't good. He was a 26-12 guy, an all-NBA player, and the Minnesota Timberwolves were looking to get a lot for him. So the Warriors went calling, and a package was made. Kevin Love for Klay Thompson and some fillers. This trade would allow the Wolves to jumpstart their rebuild, and it gave the Warriors that aggressive move. Sounds like a win-win, right? Well, not according to Jerry West. See, at the time, Jerry West was a minority owner of the team. He hated the idea of this trade. He saw something in Klay Thompson, and he didn't want the trade to happen so much so that he threatened to step down. And the Warriors took this threat seriously because they backed out of that deal, and as you can see, it worked out very, very well for them. Imagine someone like Jerry West, the logo, one of the greatest players we've ever seen in the NBA, having that much trust and seeing that much promise in you, Klay Thompson had to turn up. The very next season, he turned into an all-star, and the Warriors started their run of 4 NBA championships. And I mean, Kevin Love won a championship too, so that's gotta count for something, right? But just think about it, man. Does the dynasty happen with Kevin Love instead of Klay Thompson on the team? And the discussion is always about how would Klay Thompson play in that first option role? Well, we could have saw it in Minnesota. It's definitely a lot to think about right there. And that's what makes these type of videos fun to do.